Good evening. This is the Labour Report from the Democratic Alliance, Sunday evening, the 7th of March 2021. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. And as I always say, please distribute this so people can hear the truth of what's happening in the world of labour, labour law, and the Labour Department. It's been an interesting week, right from the Zondo Commission. We're hearing more and more problems emerging. These problems have been with us for years, but they're slowly coming out and we're slowly seeing them being exposed. I can only praise Judge Zondo. He hasn't got much time to go for his commission. They've run out of money, and indeed even his staff haven't received salary, I think, for about 2 months now. But obviously we need to support the Zondo Commission, and everyone is pushing so that they can get more finance to be able to run that commission. They haven't been able to pay the salaries, and yet people are still carrying on working. They've got a job to do and they're doing it well, and I thank them. I publicly thank all the staff working in the Zondo Commission. You might have all seen some interesting and rather strange clips from the Zondo Commission. They're cross-examining people and people are just pretending to be dumb, pretending not to hear the questions, and then downright just answering something else, not the question itself. It's frustrating, but we are getting somewhere. Over and above the Zondo Commission, things are happening in the labour law. I had an interesting meeting on Friday, a very interesting meeting on Friday with the Minister of Employment and Labour through the Portfolio Committee of the Department of Employment and Labour of Parliament. What we do know is that the restaurant industry has had a temporary reprieve. You will recall that the Minister of Employment and Labour, I think, couldn't have been all that understanding of what he was doing, but he extended the bargaining council to the rest of the restaurant industry across the country. Now, it's a country that we know has been having unbelievable retrenchments. We've got the worst unemployment in the world, and yet what does the Minister of Employment and Labour do? He extends a rather harsh regulatory environment from the bargaining council, from the restaurant industry, to small businesses across the country. In other words, forcing them to pay a lot more. The bargaining councils are obviously getting desperate. They're looking for more money, and they want to try and encourage small businesses to join. The minister made it compulsory, and I must tell you that there has been a temporary reprieve in that FedHauser, through attorney Leon Bell, and well done to Leon Bell, have in fact now pushed for an interdict, and the bargaining council has at least some time now in which to try and get their act together to try and fight the ministry about the extension of that bargaining council. We know that the building industry itself is also showing enormous, serious declines in employment, and again, they should be fighting that bargaining council as well. So thank you for listening to me again today. I'm Michael Bagram, the Labour spokesperson for the Democratic Alliance, Sunday the 7th of March 2021. We can expect a very interesting and volatile showdown between the trade union movement, mostly Consortium, who are demanding double-digit increases. They're busy in the wage negotiations right now, and they are demanding double-digit wage increases at a time when people are getting decreased salaries. They're demanding these double-digit increases from government. Government, of course, as you know, reneged on the previous 3-year agreement. They paid the 3-year agreement the first year and the second year. The third year, they didn't give the increase. That is subject to a court case, and we'll discuss that just now. The politics of the tripartite alliance is very much now in the picture. You will recall that the tripartite alliance is made up of the ANC, COSATU, and of course the Communist Party. They're in cahoots with each other, and they've been fighting every election together. They've got into bed together, and they've been fighting all these elections. COSATU has been the engine room of the ANC's election campaigns. COSATU's got an office in every little town. They've got fax machines, computers, staff, They're quite organised, COSATU, as an umbrella body, and they have thrown their weight behind COSATU, behind the ANC over many, many years, and now they're starting to rethink. And why are they starting to rethink? Well, obviously, they don't have similar ideals with regard to the wage increases for the public service employees. The public service itself is overstaffed, overpaid, and quite frankly not doing all that much work anyway. And COSATU obviously has its bread buttered with their members, who are the majority of them are in fact in the public service, and they are having this showdown with government. First of all, they hadn't honoured the 3-year agreement, so they're saying they can't trust them. Well, nor would I. And of course, they're now busy arguing about the future wage increases, which no government can afford, in particular the South African government, which is very close to bankruptcy. So that demand for the double-digit increases is going to create more and more problems within the alliance, that tripartite alliance. The Constitutional Court obviously has to now sit and deliberate on that appeal from the Labour Appeal Court, where the Labour Appeal Court said that the government didn't properly negotiate, didn't properly sign off on that 3-year wage deal, and so therefore they didn't have to pay that 3rd-year increase. It begs the question, of course, they paid an increase in year 1 and increase in year 2. If the agreement was illegal in the first place, couldn't they claw back the money from the staff? That's going to be an interesting one as well. And we wait for that ruling from the Constitutional Court. It has been argued, and we're merely waiting. I believe that when you have to negotiate between employer and employee, there must be an element of trust. That's the whole idea of bargaining. The whole idea of the people sitting around a table and negotiating for the future. When they come to an agreement, one would think that they would then honour that agreement. Well, government argued against the agreement that they themselves signed. So it's a very funny situation where now they've got to sit with that same party. In other words, COSATU has to sit with government again when they don't trust government at all. So, as I said last Friday, the 5th of March, the Minister of Employment and Labour gave a report back from his department. And when listening to him, it's almost as if I'm Alice in Wonderland. He seems to think everything is hunky-dory and it's business as usual and there's no problems and maybe a few glitches here and there, but they'll sort it out. He doesn't seem to think that 40% unemployment is a hassle. He doesn't seem to think that our productivity being the lowest in the world is a hassle. And one throws questions at the minister and you get these answers which have nothing to do with the question in the first place. So last Friday, the 5th of March, was a very frustrating meeting of the Labour portfolio of Parliament, where both the DG, the Director General, and the Minister seem to just duck questions. And they, of course, get people to stand in for them and don't tell you what's going on. The Director General himself went through his report as if the enormous cries from the public about non-payment of compensation fund when they have injuries, or non-payment of the UIF, or non-payment of the TERS doesn't exist. I tend to think, well, maybe they're just wishing it away, and maybe they want to really live in this Alice in Wonderland land. It's really weird. The CCMA itself, that's also a problem. They're enormously short of funding. The Department of Employment and Labour has cut their funding enormously, and as you know, many of their commissioners and all the part-time commissioners have been told to stay at home. First they were going to stay at home for 2 months, it's now stretched to 3 months. It's probably going to stretch to 6 months. And I don't know when they're going to come back. And what do? They then employ a very high-powered individual to be the 2IC in the organisation, in the CCMA, at an enormous salary, where you could have paid for 10, 15 commissioners per month instead of just this man. And that question was put both to the DG and the Minister, and they can't give me an answer. Luckily for me, this was picked up by the chair of the Portfolio Committee of Employment and Labour, And she is now pursuing it from the ANC side, asking the same questions that I've asked. It's funny, when the chips are down, they do actually start asking the same questions. The ministry refuses to accept that the extension of the bargaining councils is death knell to small business. Well, it is. If you take what big business is paying their staff and you extend all those expenses to small businesses, they can't compete. They start destroying themselves. They start retrenching. They have to mechanize. They have to computerize. They have to import goods and services rather than here. And the minister doesn't seem to think the extension of these agreements, like we have with the restaurant industry, is destructive to an industry. I don't understand him. I don't think he understands what he's doing, and I'm not sure who's putting that pressure. But I take my hat off to FedHauser, the federation in that industry, who are carrying on the good fight, and I wish them well with the constitutional fight as well when it eventually gets there. But they can show that the ministry has not got the numbers to be able to extend the agreement. We've also seen many bargaining councils have now been accredited for conciliations and arbitrations, which is great, but can they afford arbitrators? They get their money from the CCMA. That seems to be coming to an end as well, and I don't know how they're going to get their funding. The extension of the TERS payment was fantastic. I reported that last week. However, people are still not getting paid. There's still technical glitches. There's still administrative problems. It is a real problem. Also interesting is that the threshold payment, which is 17,700 Rand per month to those individuals, they don't get overtime, they don't get holiday pay, they don't get their normal overtime pay, work on Sundays, public holidays, etc. Staff in that threshold, above that threshold, have to have separate agreements with their employers, and I have suggested to many employers that rather increase salary, it could actually save you money if you increase the salary. So thank you for listening to me today. It's Michael Bagram once again, Sunday the 7th of March 21 from the Democratic Alliance, and we wish you well over the next week.